Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of We Need to Talk. You'll recognize my guest today from my Road to the Election series last season, but today I have her returning on the show for a one-on-one with me, comedian Dana Goldberg. Dana, thanks for joining me.
Hey, it's so good to see you again, and that beautiful baby of yours and your beautiful
Aw,
family. I follow
thank
you and
you.
adore you. Yes, it's good to be
Thank
back.
you. I can't believe she's gonna be a year. It's what?
Yeah, she's gonna be driving.
She will be driving, probably. Yeah, honestly, it's crazy. But I measure like the pandemic by her age because I literally had her the week before the first Los Angeles stay-at-home order was.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
so that's how long this pandemic has been going on. Is my daughter is tracking the time for me.
you're you're like, how long have I been in pandemic? I've been in the pandemic, baby years old. My baby years old. That's how long I've been in the pandemic.
Literally, though, it's wild. I'm so over it. I'm so over it.
Done.
And
Done.
people are still starting to, I mean, they have been acting like it's not a thing anyway, but they're really acting like it's not a thing anymore. And it's driving me crazy. Like, we're not out of this, guys. We're not.
No, and I get it. I get it, and I get it. We're getting I want to go back to work. I want to
Yeah.
travel. I want to
Yeah.
perform in front of a live audience. And I just wish people would hold on, don't act a fool, do what you need to do. Even if you've been vaccinated, even if you've had it, wear a mask, social distance, just do your thing.
Yeah.
And we can actually get this under control so that the rest of us, because apparently some of these people are living their lives like it's never happened, but the rest of us can actually go back to some sort of life. I don't want to say normalcy because there's no normal anymore. This is a
Everything's
new
changed.
normal.
Yeah.
Everything's changed.
Yeah. And it's funny, every time they do come out with like some sort of a new mandate or new stay-at-home order, I'm like, it's just the same people that have been doing it that are going to be listening
I
to, and
know.
the ones that haven't been listening aren't going to listen. So you actually don't
Oh
even
my
have to say
God.
anything.
When the federal government, they were like, we're doing a federal mask mandate. You have to wear a mask in all public places. And I'm like, who the fuck wasn't wearing a mask in a public place? Like, what do
So
you mean?
many people, though. That's the thing.
Oh my
It's
God.
wild. But I want to talk to you about how, comedy has been virtually, because I'm assuming you've
Oh,
probably done virtual events. I know. And from a singing standpoint, it sucks. I hate it. I don't want to do another virtual event if I can help it, but that's just where we are. But how has that been for you? And
this has been the most challenging year of my career by far. And I will say that. I think it's been, and this is not taking away from musicians in any way. And you can tell me what you think, because my experience has been that the transition has been a little bit easier because you, as a musician, can sing the same song 50 times and everyone's like, sing Come to My Window, because I love Come to My Window and I know all the words and I'm going to sing with you in my living room and I'm going to have drinks and all this. And if I tell a joke 5 times, everyone's like, we heard that one. We heard that thanks, Dan. We heard that one. And so now I'm in a situation where when I do an online show, everyone can come. You don't have to be in LA, or you don't have to be in Cincinnati, or you don't have to be in Dallas. And so when I do an online show and 500 people show up, it's amazing, but I can't do another show a month later with that same exact act because they've all heard it before. And there's sometimes I know people like certain jokes and they laugh like they've never heard them, and it's great. But as a comedian, I'm also sitting in my living room talking to a screen with absolutely no feedback of live laughter going, I hope they're enjoying it. Like, I don't know what you're doing in your living room. You could be washing your cat for all I know. I can't see you.
I did not think of it from that perspective in terms of material, because you're right. For me, at least with the events that I've done, I'm either doing a longer show or I just pop on to like a charity event or whatever, sing 2 songs and I can go and I can sing those same 2 songs
Right.
for every charity event that I do. But yeah, from a material standpoint, I can imagine that you're probably like, what the heck am I going to talk about now? Because the people that keep
Right.
coming back because they're fans of you. Yeah, I completely understand. And when you're touring or performing, it's different because you are going to different cities. You're going to have a different audience. You're probably going to have a different demographic. But now, literally,
Yeah.
the entire world can show up at the same time. That has to be
It's
difficult.
trippy. It is, because I mean, as comedians, and every comedian can attest to this, if we go on tour, let's say we're getting ready to film a comedy special or make an album, we can do the same set. We're actually honing that set so that when we do it, when it's filmed, it's perfect, or as close to perfect as possible. And it's a different situation now where you hope people want to come back, but when you're making a living through literally a tip jar right now,
Yeah.
like, that's how we're surviving. Artists are surviving through tip jars, through our Venmo, through our PayPals. And I'm so grateful for the fan base that's helped keep me literally lights on in my apartment over this last year. But people are tired, and they
Mm-hmm.
can only give so much. People have been affected by the pandemic financially themselves.
Yeah.
So it's been humbling. It's been interesting. And I think most of us as artists have had to make that shift into this virtual world. And luckily I've been able to do it. But this does not bring me as much joy as
Oh
getting the
yeah.
energy from a live audience. It just doesn't.
Of course, because you're literally performing to a screen.
Yeah, myself. And it's not even the screen. It's myself. Like, I'm looking at myself. It'd be different if I was looking at a screen picture of you
Right,
the whole
right,
time that
right.
made facial expressions. I am literally either looking at myself or just a very tiny camera hole. It is the strangest thing.
Yeah, and and it does make me realize how much we are kind of fueled by those audience reactions because yeah, I'll sing and then there's just silence, and you expect applause after a song, and it's not that like oh, applaud me when I'm performing, but it's interesting to know how much that does feed into what you give, how you feel, how you perform. So
For
I can
sure.
only imagine from a comedian standpoint. But do you think that this has kind of challenged you in terms of writing your material? Do you think that you've grown in any ways because you've been forced to kind of rework how you perform?
I've definitely grown in ways, and I have to say, it's been a little bit outside of stand-up. So I've had an opportunity during this pandemic to learn how to write a pilot for a sitcom that I'm working on.
Mm,
So that's where my growth has come. That's where my growth has come when it comes to like my toolbox of things that I can take into my career moving forward.
mhm.
As a stand-up, over the last few years, I've somehow shifted into political comedy. I know we've known each other for a few years now, and it wasn't intentional. It's just something that happened. I've always had an activist heart.
Yeah.
And so I've found ways to use my comedy and my activism to raise money for national organizations around the country and just try and bring some sanity to literally the insane last 5 years. 5 years. I know everyone keeps talking about 4, but Trump was on our national radar for a year before he was, I'm not even going to say elected, before whatever the hell that was. Um, so this is 5 years of craziness
Yeah.
for us to get through. So for me, having grown as a stand-up, I think what I've realized is that my fan base is stronger than I realized. My voice reaches farther than I realized, and my ability to make people laugh is more important than I realized. A lot of people have been looking to comedians during this time, during the pandemic, to bring them joy, which is
Yeah.
so interesting because we got to put our oxygen mask on first, or our pandemic mask, as it might be, on first before we can help everyone else. But that's what people look to comedians for. So it's been this very weird balance of how can I keep myself sane, and then how can I help you stay sane? It's
Mhm.
it's been very interesting. So I think that people on the outside looking in, Malynda, would probably say, I see your growth more than you do. But I think that we always do that as
Of course.
entertainers because we
Of
see it from
course.
the inside out, and we're always in that hustle, and we're always trudging, and we're always in the muck. And then someone else is looking at your career going, man, look how successful she is. And I'm like, what is she, what are they talking about?
Yeah, yeah, and
Because we'd
we
never
just
see
we
it.
just had a
We never see
conversation
it.
about that when you emailed me because I was like I'm having a really crappy day, and I told you how I was feeling, and it's interesting
Yeah.
getting the responses from people though not knowing like what our internal struggles are with art, because I think there is a certain level with artistry that like you kind of are never fully satisfied. You're fulfilled, but you're always looking for that next goal. And so I completely agree. I know people look at my career and the things that I've created and they're like, "Oh, how did you do this? How did you do this?" And I'm like, "I seriously have no idea what I'm doing." And I like there's so many things that
Yeah.
I want to accomplish that I look at other people and I'm like, "I don't have that either and I wish I had this." And so yeah, I'm 100% in alignment with you.
People teach comedy classes, and I'm like, how do you, like, if someone said, Dana, teach what you do, I would be like, I'm not sure how I do what I do. It comes from a place that I'm not even sure I'm aware of. I have the utmost respect for people that can actually make money teaching people how to be funny, because I I don't know what I would say to someone. It's really interesting. So
Right. Right.
we just sort of cruise along. I think some people have the ability to put it into words, and other people are just coming from a place. And I know you'll believe in this, and I'm sure some of your listeners will, but it just comes from a higher power of when I'm doing what I'm doing. It's the energy is flowing through me from a place that I'm not even aware of.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
think that all of this now, art and comedy, music, whatever, it's been so easily accessible now because we've kind of needed this place to have an outlet, whether we're getting paid to do it or not. Do you think
Yeah.
there's going to be a less of appreciation for art? Do you think people are going to appreciate it more, realizing that we actually were the ones saving people during this time? Because arts are always the first thing to leave in schools. People say that artists aren't real jobs or whatever nonsense they want to spew out about what we do and being in the entertainment industry. But I personally am hoping that people will have a greater appreciation for art. But I want to know what you think.
I absolutely agree with you, sweetheart. I do. I think the people that have always appreciated art are going to push that up exponentially. I think that some of the people that didn't realize how hard it is to be an artist out there are going to appreciate it more. But the thing is, I think live art, comedy shows, concerts, things like that, once we're allowed to get into a public space with more than 10 people, I think people are really going to enjoy that again and appreciate it again, and possibly pay higher ticket prices to be in that environment again. Because you have to remember that even though this is what people have gotten used to, I'm not going to be doing virtual shows when I can perform live again. So people aren't going to be it's not going to be as easy to just jump on your computer and sign on to a Zoom show to see a bunch of comedians. We want to be back in the clubs. We want to be in front of live. I want to be able to sell tickets that people can. Meet and greets are going to be fucking weird. I mean, let's be honest. I'm going to be like fist bumping people
Like,
instead of
still
like,
stay away from me though.
yeah. I'm like, can you have your friend Photoshop us closer? Because I'm not touching you. Yeah, you know. So those are the things that I think are going to be a little bit different, like the closeness we have with our fans. But eventually, I'll have a vaccine. Eventually, I'll feel safer being out there. And until then, I really do believe, especially in places like Los Angeles and New York, and Chicago, the big art cities where there's a lot of live performances. I know New York is jonesing for Broadway to open back up, and I think it's going to be hugely successful.
Yeah.
I know in Los Angeles, the same thing when it comes to live shows, whether it's comedy or music or even a museum. I don't feel comfortable being in an inside space right now where there's people walking around. Not when you get news every other day that this variant that and this variant this, and I'm like, oh my God, apparently we're making our own variants of this damn virus now. Like in California, like we have a special one for California.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
fuck off. New York
Right.
has their own variant. I'm like,
I know it is everyday thing. And I feel like I read that article about the California variant. I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm just staying home more, which is fine. I've actually discovered about myself that I don't have an issue staying home. I really, really don't. I'm like perfectly fine with it.
There's a lot of introverts. Oh no, me, I'm dying. I miss hugging people. I miss seeing my friends. I miss traveling. But I know a bunch of introverts that are like, I have been planning for this my entire life. Like I have been preparing for this moment. Yeah, and not me. I cannot wait to get back out there. Just for so many reasons. I thrive on it. I'm one of those. I think what they call introverted extroverts, where I thrive on like the public shows, but I recover alone. Like I need my alone time. I need that quiet space. I need my mornings where I make my tea and I have that quiet beginning to a day. And that's how I refuel. But I also need to be out there and feel the energy of my people.
No,
I miss it terribly.
I feel that too. I connect with that as well. So you mentioned though, in the last 5 years, you've shifted into political comedy. What was your comedy like before?
That's interesting. When I say it was the last 5 years, I've been doing this for 2003, 18 years, my goodness. And I look back at some of my shows, and it's just, it was very like relationship stuff and family stuff and things like that. And I think when I started getting more political was definitely, I remember shows around the Sarah Palin years, where she came onto the scene and everything just got nutty.
And I
I
think
try
he
not to
wrote
use the word
itself.
crazy because, yeah, oh my God. I mean, the jokes just kept on coming. I mean, that was good Saturday Night Live years with like Tina Fey and Amy Poehler. And, that was a good time for comedy, a terrible time for the country, but a really good time for comedy. But at the same time, I mean, thank God McCain didn't win that election, probably because of Sarah Palin.
I would bet a lot of money it's because of her.
Yeah. I mean, when you've got a president and you're like, they joke about it, but one heartbeat away, the VP is going to be in there. They're talking about it now with Biden.
Yeah.
It is a
Yeah.
conversation that needs to be had. But with
Yeah.
McCain, everyone was like, wait a minute. If something happens to him, that's what
She's
we're
gonna.
left with? I don't think so. Nope. Absolutely not.
That was a wild time. And for me, I
Right?
think that's when I started getting involved in politics and really paying attention. Because,
For
before,
sure.
I mean, I was probably younger, didn't really know anything. But then I was like, hold up, wait a minute. These people are representing our country, are representing us as humans. And this is what the entire world's seeing. And I think that's when I started to
Yeah,
kind of get embarrassed by some of the representatives that we have. And
absolutely.
I mean, you're just as vocal as I am on Twitter, but have you ever found that like speaking out about politicians or speaking out against, certain people in political positions has ever affected you negatively? Like in terms of your fan
Oh,
base or
Oh, for sure. Fan base, I do have people that are like, can you just be funny? Why do you have to be political? And I'm like, why does it have to be mutually exclusive? Like,
right.
if you will just allow yourself to be in this space where we're not so. I mean, in both parties do this where we're so tied to these idols and these ideologies where these are somehow the messiah for each party, which is just bullshit.
Right.
And I think one party is worse about that. I definitely think the Republicans definitely put their people up on this pedestal, whether it's Donald or, Bush or anyone else, where they can do no wrong. And
Yeah.
even if they do wrong, we're going to pretend they did no wrong. And
Yeah.
I think Democrats and progressives are much better about holding our own accountable when they do something, where especially you can see this movement happening now with progressives running against old school Democrats, that maybe they're tired of the policies, or these Democrats don't believe in a $15 minimum wage, or they don't believe in some of these things that progressives are really pushing. So you've got people like AOC, they're ousting long-term Democrats that have just been sort of riding this wave of their name, and sometimes they don't even live in the places where their constituents do, and they're getting people out of office that are need to be. I live in California. Di-Fi, she's had a good run. She's
Yeah.
had a
Yeah.
good
But it's
run, but
time.
I'm okay getting another senator in there that's
Yeah.
a little bit younger and has some different ideas and
Yeah.
isn't going to hug Lindsey Graham after they tried to, after they tried to overthrow the government. I just can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the frustration there. But
I was going to comment about when you said that Democrats are more likely to hold people accountable and Republicans, kind of just look the other way when people make mistakes. And I think that kind of comes into just the fact that Republicans have tethered themselves to Christianity, but in the wrong way.
for
And
sure.
for me, I've been a very progressive liberal Christian my whole life. So I was always very shocked when I heard conservative ideals. I'm like, are we reading the same Bible? But I think the problem is that they get into this mindset and they really misinterpret a lot of Jesus's words about forgiveness. And they think that like you can do, as long as you apologize for it or you repent, like you can basically do
Right.
whatever you want. And I think that when it comes to people like Donald Trump, when it comes to people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, when it comes to people like
Mm,
Ted Cruz, they think that all they have to do is apologize to their God if they did something wrong, and then it's
sure.
fine. And so then they don't understand when they're being called out about it publicly because they don't know what accountability is because they've never been taught that. They've just been taught they'll be forgiven if they do something wrong.
Or you'll pay for it in the next life, which they
Right.
don't really care about because they don't necessarily believe in that.
Right.
Right. No,
It's
I agree with
ooh,
you. That is very interesting theory. And I think you're right. And don't get me wrong. I know there's a lot of very God loving Democrats and progressives that believe in a
sure.
higher power, but it's different. It is
It
not this
is.
cult like religious thing where, like you said, they feel like it's an excuse for their bad behavior on this earth. I
Yeah.
feel like sometimes Democrats and progressives prescribe more to that, almost in the Jewish faith, of an eye for an eye. Like, you're going to
Mm,
pay for it now. and we're going to
Yeah.
make you pay for it now. If you're going to
Yeah.
sit now, you're paying for it now.
Hmm.
And I think sometimes that's been taken to an extreme. And I'll just say, for instance, Al Franken. I don't necessarily think he should have been pushed out of office. I'm not saying what he did was right, but I think that sometimes we try and make an example of our own and we choose the wrong people, and it doesn't benefit us.
Right.
It does
Right.
not benefit us
Right.
when we're like, oh, we'll show you that we hold them responsible. And I'm like, oh, that was your choice. God, we just really blew that one.
But in terms of cancel culture versus accountability, I do think that there is a difference. I do. And I've been having these conversations a lot lately. I think that some people deserve to be canceled, and I think there are a long list of unforgivable offenses. I absolutely do. But I think that the problem that I have had with canceling some people and even canceling some of our own is that there really is never any grace, and there's no room for growth or education or
Agreed.
learning. And I think that when we
Yeah.
cancel people, there's actually no end game. Like, okay, we're canceling them in this moment, but like, don't we want people to learn from their mistakes? Don't we want them to do better? So if we're just lifting them out of the situation, then what's the goal? You know?
100%. Absolutely, I agree with you. I think one of the funniest things is that the Republicans and the right are screaming about cancel culture when they're the ones that are literally trying to cancel their own party when they
Yeah.
disagree with them. Like, Jim Jordan is screaming about cancel culture when they literally just voted to get Liz Cheney out of her committee.
And the way that they treated Mitt Romney and like everybody that like,
Exactly.
oh my gosh.
You want to talk about cancel culture? The Dixie Chicks. Oh my God, that's when this shit started.
Right.
When she spoke out about George Bush, and all she said was not proud that he's our president, and embarrassed that he's from the great state of Texas. And their career was destroyed over that. If they said that now, nothing. There wouldn't even be a blink of an eye, unless they were Democrats. But Republicans can say shit like that all the time. I mean, the stuff that Marjorie Taylor Greene is getting away with publicly is mind blowing. Her transphobia, her homophobia, her harassing and stalking gun victim survivors. It's just mind blowing to me. And you and I spoke about it briefly off air, but the fact that these people are running unopposed, I will tell you right now, if you're listening to this podcast, please, if you have any inclination to run for public office, but you're like, oh, maybe I'm not qualified, look at the Congress. You're fucking qualified.
I mean, look at their last president. You're qualified.
Seriously, you're qualified. If that's the bar we're at, you're good. If you have a pulse, you haven't committed any crimes, like, just go for it.
Not if you have a pulse.
My God.
Which is so crazy, though, because the message that it sends is like, there's two sides. It's like, you don't have to be qualified to do anything to reach the highest office. But then I feel like you could spin the story saying like, if you just work hard, you can do anything you want. And it's like, that's not really what this message is sending. But that's the kind of message that they're going to say.
Of course. It's like when the American dream turns into the American nightmare. Donald Trump is not the American dream. This is not someone, if he works hard enough, can reach the highest office in the land. He was literally created by Mark Barnett as the apprentice. That's the only reason he was elected, or that people, I still think that he stole this election, but that people voted for him is they thought he was some great businessman. All of this was bullshit, smoke and mirrors. And half of the voting population, because it's not half the country, because unfortunately the entire country doesn't vote, but half of the voting population fell for it in the last election. And thank God it was still a disgusting amount, 70 million people, a disgusting amount of people that apparently misogyny, transphobia, sexual predation, being a sexual predator, bigotry, racism, all of that weren't deal breakers, which is just mind blowing to me.
But abortion.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's the only argument.
There was an announcement at the CPAC convention, which to me sounds like a CPAP machine. I feel like that's all I think of when I'm like a CPAC. That's exactly what it sounds like to me. But when they canceled a young pharaoh, I think it was because of the anti-Semitic comments, and it's really funny because like this whole CPAC convention is like the anti-cancel culture, and then they canceled somebody for their beliefs. But it's just like all of this stuff these people that are perpetuating all of this bullshit and giving these lunatics a platform. It's mind-boggling to me. Absolutely mind-boggling.
It really is. And I feel like, even after this, last election, in the last 5 years, as you mentioned, it really has been 5 years. Ted Cruz, what's his name, Josh Hawley, whoever these people are,
Oh,
Marjorie Taylor Greene. I do not think that the constituents are going to ever realize, like, these people, Mitch McConnell, they don't care about you, and it
no, they
actually breaks
don't.
my heart because I don't understand. Like, at base, I do feel like on both sides, we could all say we want to be able to provide for our families, we want to be successful in some way. Like, there are certain core things that I think everybody could pretty for the most part agree on.
Sure.
Why do you think that these people represent what you want for your life? I've been trying so hard to understand and find the answer, and I don't get it. You have Ted Cruz going to Cancun when literally, and this isn't even true, literally people are freezing to death. I think 37 people died, didn't they? I think
Yeah.
yeah, about 37 people died in Texas. People are literally freezing to death, and you have the audacity to go to Mexico.
And then lie about
And
it, then throw your
then lie.
children under the bus. Then the neighbor puts out the text message chain because they think you're a big enough piece of shit that they're going to throw you under the bus.
He didn't
The
even
whole
throw them.
thing was ridiculous.
He just he chucked his
He
children
was
under the
driving the
bus.
bus. He was driving the bus. He was like, "Kids, get under it." Vroom. Like if that was my dad, I would have been so pissed. Well, one, if that was my dad, I'd be horrified anyway. It was funny because people were tweeting before we knew that the story was confirmed. People were like, "Is this Ted Cruz? Is this Ted Cruz? Is Ted Cruz going to Cancun?" And I'm like, if that's not Ted Cruz, I feel really bad for the person who has to go through their entire life looking exactly like Ted Cruz.
Could you imagine though if it wasn't him and he's like, "Yeah, I know, I look just like him."
No, I would be like, shave the beard, do something else. You even have his insurrection mullet. Like, just change your haircut.
I'm
I
in
can't.
tears because
I
the thought of
can't.
that is so funny. But
Oh,
I just don't know what would have to happen for people to realize that there are specific politicians that do not care about you. Now, I have loved seeing there are a small number of Republicans step up. I really gained a
yeah.
lot of respect from Mitt Romney in the last couple of years. He was like, "No, this is wrong." He's a politician. I'm sure there are
Yeah.
policies of his that I don't agree with, but like if it came down to it,
There
and
are.
like tons, but if it came down
Yeah.
to it, like I clearly would have been fine with him over Trump. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. If it was Donald running for Mitt Romney, I would vote for a Republican
Right.
for the first time in my life, and it would be Mitt Romney.
Right, right.
Like, if those were our choices and there was no Democrat for some weird reason running, or
Yeah.
Mitt Romney changed parties all of a sudden, Mitt Romney would get my vote. But,
Yeah.
I agree with you. I do think I was so fucking mad at the country making me cheer for Liz Cheney.
Yeah.
This is a woman who threw her gay sister under the bus during
Yeah.
marriage equality, threw her under the bus just so she could get elected. And you guys are making me cheer for her
Yeah.
because she's going up against Matt Gaetz. Like, this is a problem.
You're like, I'm so conflicted right now.
She did the
Oh
right
my
thing,
gosh.
though.
She
But
did.
it's one of,
She did.
yeah, she did. I mean, her dad is an evil.
Which we all know. Which we
my goodness.
all know.
Yeah.
But it's so
Yeah.
funny. I think somebody said they didn't think that they would see somebody more evil than Dick Cheney, but then, we have Mitch McConnell.
Mitch McConnell knows exactly what he's doing, too. That's what pisses me off.
100%. I was screaming at the TV. I was so upset. My husband wouldn't even watch it because he was so angry, but he said the exact same thing. He's like, he knows exactly what he's doing. He planned this.
Yeah.
He planned to vote to not convict, and then he planned to give that speech.
He
thinks we're all
delayed
stupid.
the hearing. He's the one who delayed the fucking.
Yeah.
Oh, he does. And I hate to say this because he keeps getting reelected in his own state. Although I don't necessarily trust the last election in Kentucky or South Carolina, and I would like for them to be audited, but they're not going to be. But he keeps getting reelected.
Yeah.
So of course he's going to keep doing what he's doing. His pockets are so deep in Kentucky. It is so unfortunate that that man is going to have to retire. And he's going to have to retire before he's actually voted out, which is just so damn frustrating. Because if the people of Kentucky knew what they could actually get if we had a Stacey Abrams coalition in these states where they knew, and this is what she said she went knocking on doors. And I don't know if you saw this interview, but she said, listen, I didn't tell people if you vote for this person, things are going to change. What I told them is if you don't vote, your circumstances will stay this way because the people that are in office are doing nothing for you. So can I guarantee if you vote for this other person that everything's going to change? No, but I can guarantee you if you don't vote, nothing will.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it was people that hadn't voted before because they felt like it didn't matter, and getting all of these new voters. And, and I hope that we can't look to Stacey to save this country, but there are people like her in each state that if they would get this coalition together, we can flip Texas back to blue. Texas was purple for a very, very long time, So,
yeah. And speaking of people not voting, I've found it interesting, but also not very surprising, that I think they said 80% of the people that stormed the Capitol didn't even vote.
Not surprising at all.
So what the hell were you fighting for?
They didn't vote because their leader told them that their vote wasn't, don't vote by mail, it won't count, which backfired on him. And in Georgia, don't vote because the machines are broken, which backfired on him. So when you have your president telling you if you vote by machine it doesn't work, and if you vote by mail it doesn't work, there's a lot of people that are not going to go out and vote. Yeah. Then they're going to be upset, and they're going to try and overthrow a government that they think are the reason that their vote is not counting and that it was stolen from them. I mean, the other thing that's scary about the statistic that you just said is that 1 in 5, I think it was 1 in 5 people were armed services, or used to be in the military.
Yeah.
And that to me is a direct reflection, and could be a bigger conversation, but this is a direct reflection of how we do not take care of our veterans. And let me explain what I'm saying. When people are off to war, you are in the services and you come home, and you don't have a country that's going to give you the military benefits that you deserve or pay for your college education anymore, or they don't honor the GI Bill anymore, or they don't take care of you when you've had so much mental and physical trauma. It makes sense that when a group of white supremacists come to you and say, hey, brother, we got your back. Just walk with us. We will take care of you. We see you. We understand your pain. We understand everything. We got your back, brother. Walk with us. That's not surprising that a lot of ex-military become part of these Proud Boys and these Oath Keepers because they feel like they are actually making a difference again, and they have their brothers beside them. It does not surprise me. It doesn't surprise me.
I haven't heard that angle, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And it's sad.
It is.
It's sad.
We need to take care of the people that protect our country.
Yeah. We
just need to. So.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. So looking at the current administration, what have you, we're not at 100 days yet, but what have you been pleased with that you've seen? And what do you really hope they, focus on, at least in the first year?
And I am glad you asked me this, because I'm going to ask you the same question, because I'm coming from a place of privilege when I talk about this. Even though I am a lesbian, I'm a Jew, and I'm a woman, I'm a white cis woman. Mm-hmm. And so when I answer this, please know that it's coming from this place. And then I want to know how you feel, because you have a very different view. Okay. I am grateful that the Biden-Harris administration has fixed the discrimination, not all of it, but the LGBTQ discrimination in the workplace. Even though the Supreme Court ruled on it, it was not being put into effect by the Trump administration, that you cannot discriminate in the workplace. That they made them put that into effect. I am grateful that after a year of lying to the general public about this virus and about its impact and about the deaths, that we actually have an administration that is doing their damnedest to make sure that vaccines get out, to make sure that testing is done, to make sure that it's reaching the most vulnerable communities, the Black and brown communities that have been overwhelmingly affected by the coronavirus. I do believe the administration is doing a hell of a job with that. You have to remember, we didn't start from zero. We started from 6 feet under. And they're just trying to get back to level. They're just trying to get back to starting at zero, So very happy about that. I'm happy about the Paris Climate Agreement. I think that climate change and the climate crisis is one of the biggest things that affects us. And also leads in when I say affects us, it's not just the planet. It is seeped into systematic racism in our country, and the Black and brown communities that don't have clean water, that don't have the places to live and the air to breathe and the things that they need. All of this trickles down into the inequities in our country. So I'm very glad that they got back into that. The for-profit prisons, canceling those contracts. I think it was one of the best things that he could have done. I know he was going to piss off a lot of people. Our prison system should not be for profit. That's why the beds are being filled by, again, Black and brown people that are committing crimes that a white person would never go to jail for, nor should anyone be going to jail for, meaning like you've got an ounce of pot on you. You know what? If we decriminalize marijuana, this would not be a problem. So I am very grateful for that decision. And that's just, 4 or 5 of them I can think of off the top of my head. I think the
those things
equality.
are great.
Yeah.
I completely agree with those things.
What would you like to see different? Like, as a person of color, woman of color, what do you feel like you would have liked more focus on?
I still think we haven't addressed the police brutality issue. And while we haven't had any viral situations, and I hate saying that, it is still an issue. It is still an
Absolutely.
issue with how cops are trained. It's still an issue with the amount of education that cops need to have. It's still an issue with the amount of money that is in police. I think we need to talk about, I hate defund the police, the title.
Oh, it's awful.
I absolutely hate it. And, just thinking of it from like a branding marketing standpoint, I'm like, come on, can we think of something so that people don't think that that's what it actually is? Because I hate when you have to do, this sounds lazy, but I hate when you have to do research about something. You know what I mean? Yeah. I will anyway, because I like to stay educated, but the average person isn't going to look up, what does defund the police really stand for? They see
Right.
defund the police and that's what they think it is. So I do want the things that are kind of under the umbrella of defund the police to come more to the forefront, because they are things that need to be addressed. I think it was Colorado that did like a 6-month test where they actually implemented the things that defund police wanted, where they sent mental health advocates, they sent
Mm-hmm.
psychologists, they sent family therapists to deal with certain situations and not police, and they said it was just a complete success. And I want to see that rolled out across the country, because that would make such a huge difference. Now granted, please piss me off, I don't think all cops are bad, but I think a lot of them are. But
Yeah.
I do think that they are overworked. I do think that they are not trained. I don't think they're culturally sensitive. And I think that that's something that we need to focus on. But and again, I'm not siding with cops because I do think they're overworked, but I do think they're overworked. But I think that if we focus on bringing in those correct professionals to deal with people that
Mm-hmm.
have mental health issues, to deal with people that are autistic, to deal with, family issues, just things that cops don't need to be dealing with, we would have so many less situations where
I
we're
agree.
doing a hashtag, where somebody's trending on Twitter, so that I really do want to see that focused on a little bit more. The other thing that I was kind of bothered by was the student loan situation. I I get why people are like, well, why should they cancel? I get it. However, look at the plus side of why canceling student loan debt would be such a positive. It would help the economy. It would help close the racial wealth gap for Black and brown people, because
100%.
majority of people that are in debt from student loans are Black and brown people, because we're
Mm-hmm.
not, we didn't grow up with the privilege of having our parents be able to pay for that education. And so we go into debt trying to get ahead, and then we just can never get ahead. So I was a little disappointed that he went from 50 to 10, but I would hope maybe they'll come in the middle and like say 25. You know what I mean? I think that that would
Yeah.
be like a good number. So those are the two issues for me right now that I really want to focus on. But I love the for-profit prison contracts being canceled. I absolutely gave him applause for that, because I think it was a huge and a crucial step. It needed to happen. And I think that what they're doing with the vaccine rollout and in the pandemic in general has been great, because they literally walked in with nothing. And like you said, they were 6 feet
Yeah.
under. They walked in with nothing. Trump did not have a vaccine rollout plan. How dare you? How dare you? Like, really, that is so frustrating to me. And that's the other thing, when you look back at it and these people that are still on the Trump train, like the train has crashed. The train is crashed. It is gone. It doesn't exist anymore. You're still on this Trump train. The man had no plan.
They're on the Trump train because they can't fly. They're all on a no-fly list now. So the only thing they can take is the Trump train.
Literally, though. But the man had no plan to help get this country
None.
back on track. I mean, we saw that. We've seen it for the last year. He never had a plan.
He doesn't. He didn't care.
Nope, nope. He didn't care at all whatsoever. And that's so frustrating, but people do not want to see it. And, there was a thread on Facebook that somebody was like, why isn't Biden sending help to Texas? And then my friend posted a post that he had, approved, FEMA aid. And they were like, you didn't just Google this, but it's really
I
that
know
simple.
some
They
stuff
just
you can just Google.
It's free. That's the thing. Google is
Uh,
free. That is like my
yeah,
favorite saying. Google is free and people don't want to do it. They're just lazy because they want to be upset
yeah.
about something because they actually don't want to learn the truth that this administration is probably going to be a lot better than the last one.
I mean, it's absolutely going to be. I don't think there's any. I don't think there's any comparison there. The last administration wasn't an administration; it was a crime ring.
Right.
So I don't know. It was just literally 4 years of a blip that I feel like in history books it's going to be like Bush, Clinton, Bush, Obama, 4 blank pages. Biden.
It's like we don't talk about these 4
We
years.
don't
That's
talk
what it's
about
going
it.
to
We
say.
don't talk about it. Yep. Moving on. No, keep it moving.
Moving on.
Keep it moving.
Well, before we wrap up, I'd love to know two things from you. One, what do you think is the most important thing that you learned about yourself in the last year? And two, what are you going to take from that lesson to apply as we come out of the pandemic?
Mm. To quote the amazing Glennon Doyle, we can do hard things. I can do hard things. I think what I realized when the pandemic hit as an artist, and you'll understand this, there's so much of our personal life. Everyone's like, you're not your job. You're not your job. Well, when you are an artist, you are your career. Because so much of who you are is wrapped up in the art you put out to this world is a direct reflection of what's inside you. Yeah. And so what I learned about myself is that my worth as a person, just a person on this planet, exists outside of my career. I reach more people, obviously, through what I do, but that doesn't mean if I'm not doing what I'm doing, I'm worth anything less than when I am raising millions of dollars for organizations. And I think what I realized, too, is that you never know when this is going to fucking happen again, Malynda. I mean, I hate to say this. None of us expected this. And so what do you want to do with your life? Do you want to write a pilot? Do you want to make a record? Do you want to write a book? Do you want to do a podcast? What do you really want to do with your life? Right. And do it, and just do it. And so, money, trust me, is important so that we can pay our bills and we can do our thing. And that last year was scary, and this year is scary. But I know that it will start coming back as work comes in, hopefully. And, I get vaccinated. And so just to take it into how do I want to spend my days? Who do I want to be around? It's a big thing. Who do I want to be around? Who is going to fuel my energy? And I'm not talking about my fan base. I'm talking friends and family and the people you have intimate relationships with, not physically, emotionally, anything. Who do you want to give your time to? Because I realized I was saying yes to everything before the pandemic. And even during a little bit because of that fear base of I need to stay relevant. I need to keep my name at the top of the list. Yes, I'll do this for free. Yes, I'll come on and give 10 minutes. Yes, I'll do this virtually. Yeah. And as I carry outside of it, I need to learn how to say yes to the things that I believe in and that are important to me, and say no to some things so that I can say yes to myself. And I know that sounds so self-helpy, but it's true. Otherwise, we are going to be spread thin and we're going to be tired and we're not going to recover because this was a hard 2 years, and it will probably be 2 years by the time this is done.
Agreed.
So, yeah.
Beautiful lessons. Well, Dana, it is always a pleasure chatting with you. So thank you for coming.
And I know the listeners don't get to. I get to see your beautiful face for the entire 45 minutes we're talking, and I just feel so connected to you. So thank you for inviting me back on. I love being a guest on your podcast. It's fantastic, and thanks for giving me the platform to spew some of my life lessons.
Well, let the listeners know where they can follow you and keep up with your career as well.
If you're on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, it's all the same. It's DG Comedy, and I'd love if you follow me on any of those. If for some reason you're on the Stereo app, it is a free app. I do a live show every Thursday at 5 p.m. with Allison Gill from the Daily Beans. And so if you're on the Stereo app, follow me at DG Comedy. And hopefully soon I'll have some dates on my website, which is danagoldberg.com. It needs to be updated. I'm so sorry. But I'll get on it. I'll get on it knowing that hopefully people are going to start visiting it. So thank you. Yeah, thank you for that.
Absolutely. Of course. Great to have you. And we'll definitely have you back again. And to the listeners, thanks for listening. Yes, make sure you subscribe to We Need to Talk. And if you want to join the Patreon community, go to patreon.com/Malynda Hale. And we'll talk to you again next week. Bye.